All right, day number 4 of my 7-day language learning experiment. What have I been doing? The same stuff I've been doing the previous 3 days, memorizing a lot of vocabulary, reading, listening to the language. Yeah, this is basically the way you learn to understand the language. If you want to improve your comprehension, you need, first of all, you need more vocabulary, and then you need a lot of reading and especially listening time because no amount of studying grammar will help you understand the language. You need vocab and you need listening time. If you don't know the vocab, listening will be a waste of time because you don't know the words, right? You can learn some vocabulary in context, but for that you need to know enough words already. So every day I memorize 100 plus words, new words. I review the previous ones that I memorized. I simply just like read the list quickly. I memorize them with associations, by the way. That's the best way. And then more reading and more listening. Short stories over and over again to learn all the basics of grammar and review the vocabulary that I've been memorizing with associations. And after that, I've been doing listen and repeating drills to work on my speaking a little bit. It's difficult for now, but I'm working on it. Listen and repeating drills help your pronunciation. If you pay attention to detail and you try to sound as close as possible to whatever you're listening to. And also helps your comprehension because if you pay attention to what you're listening to, you pay attention to detail, how they pronounce specific um, combinations of letters or what sound a specific uh, accent marking or specific the umlaut or whatever makes in the language, then you learn to recognize those words when you're doing the listening practice. It's often a challenge. It's a challenging thing to. It's one thing to know the vocabulary. If you see them written somewhere, you recognize the words. But then when you hear them in a sentence, you listen to them, you can't recognize them. That's because you haven't learned the proper pronunciation and simply you haven't been doing enough listening practice. So listen and repeating drills and a lot of listening. These two things will help you understand the language well, as long as you're also memorizing vocab, right? And the new thing I've done today, I've started with is language islands. I've taken my language islands, hundreds of sentences that I've prepared for other languages before. I've simply translated them into Swedish, and I'm aware that not all of them will be accurate. I'm okay with that. It's better to be able to speak all day with some mistakes than not being able to speak at all, right? You'd rather be able to speak, and then once you can speak, even if you make mistakes, then you can correct those mistakes eventually. But language islands is the best way to become conversational quickly and then fluent. So I've taken that list of sentences, translated it into Swedish with Google Translate. So I've got document, 2 columns, English on one side, um, Swedish on the other side, and I've started reading Swedish. I still don't really know how pronunciation works all that well, so I'm probably butchering it. But that's why I'm doing the listening and repeating drills and all the listening as well. I'll slowly learn more and more how the pronunciation works, and I'll read them aloud better and better. I also generated an audio file for those sentences. Sounds kind of robotic and artificial, but for now, it gets the job done. It's good enough, so I'll just binge listen to it. So I learn all those sentences. And think about it. If you prepare a bunch of sentences for each one of the likely scenarios, like introducing yourself, talking about a hobby, talking about food, whatever, and you memorize 20 sentences for each one of the scenarios, all the likely scenarios and all the conversation topics, you'll be able to speak quite a lot in the language. Again, even if you make mistakes, that's way better than not being able to speak much. So this is the goal. I'll try to learn this 1,000 plus sentences before the end of the week. So I've got 3 days for this. It's going to be a challenge, and I'm. I don't think my accent's going to be all that good, but at least I'll be able to say quite a lot in Swedish. I think in 3 days, I'm going to memorize all the vocab, specific vocab from those sentences, and then lots of repetition. And I think with that, I'll be able to not be fluent, obviously, but I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I'll be able to. I'll be conversational at least. Um, that's the plan for the next couple of days. Although I might, depending on how I'm evolving, I might change the plan depending on how things go. Maybe I add more stuff because I really want to get good results with this. But yeah, plan around 1,000 sentences that are useful, and with that I'll be conversational at least in Swedish, and then fluency will be. It's probably too much of a. It's probably an overly ambitious goal, but we'll try to get there. Anyway, I'm gonna show you what I've been doing, the exercise. I'm gonna show it to you, screen share, and you get to see what I've been doing, and you can do it on your own for whatever language you're trying to learn. All right, let's work on the language islands. These are the language islands, practical sentences for lots of different scenarios, starting with the very basics, introducing yourself, the language. This is always comes up. Why do you speak Swedish? I'm learning now. I like learning languages. Blah blah blah. Have you ever been to Sweden? And then yeah, different like where you're from, hobbies, what do you do, what you do for a living, what you like to do in your free time. I recommend you come up with a list of topics and situations, and then write sentences for all of them. I am not 100% certain that this is all correct. I trust Google Translate for this. I think Google Translate is pretty good. I used to work for Google Translate. Believe it or not, I used to. If you use Google Translate for Basque, I translated a lot of the content so that then Google Translate would machine learn from it. I don't know how. I'm not an IT guy, but I don't know how AI works. I don't know how Google Translate works. But my job, that was ages ago, but um, my job was to translate thousands of sentences so that then the software, the machine, whatever you want to call it, would learn from those sentences how English translates into Basque. So now it translates Basque. I wasn't the only person doing that. We were a team of translators, but yeah, I contributed. I used to work for Google, believe it or not. It was pretty well paid, but it was an insane amount of work and not fun at all. Okay. Anyway, yeah, language islands. So all my language islands just change the language. Okay, do you speak Mandarin? Do you speak Japanese? And then whatever it's interesting about that language, you type whatever you want to say, and then all the places and you've been, and like you can use this for storytelling as well. I've got some stories later on. That time I was in Berlin and I went to that club and this and that happened, and you don't want to know that. But okay, uh, you translate everything and you start reading them aloud. I'll butcher the language, so I've been reading them aloud already, uh, pronouncing them badly. This is why you should. So, god morgon, god kväll. Vad heter du? Min namn är Mikkel. Hallå, trevligt att träffas. Pratar du svenska? And you go like that with the whole thing. I'm again pronunciation not good, but the key here is doing the listening and repeating exercise. Um, you you use interleaving, so you do 5 or 10 minutes of listening and repeating, and then these sentences. and you go back to listen and repeating, and you do these sentences. You read them aloud. Also, I generated an audio file. I don't know how accurate it is with this, but I'm binge listening to it. But to make sure that my pronunciation's on point, that's slowly improving, I am also again doing listening and repeating right before I do this before every session. And the plan is first I'll just read them aloud over and over again, and then once I've read them enough times and listened to it enough times, what I do is hide them like this. Good morgen, good morgon. Oop, doesn't work. Why does it? This is weird. Normally, is it because I'm sharing my screen? Yeah, normally when I hide this, I get, yeah, this part should be here. I don't know what's happening. But yeah, you try to say it in, and of course you could simply wait. You could simply not look as well, right? You don't have to hide it completely. Just to look at the sentence. You try to say it. Good evening. I don't remember. Good kväll. Good kväll. You read it in English. You try to say it in the language. You check and you repeat it again if you didn't remember. Uh, what hate to do? Yeah, I'm still again fourth day learning Swedish, so don't expect too much. Mijn naam is Mikkel. Mit naam is Mikkel. Hello. Yeah, I still can't. I need to read them more times and listen to them more times. I just started doing this literally. Like today, I've started with this exercise. But if you keep doing this daily, you will be able to say a few hundred sentences in a few days, and that gives you a lot to work with when you're going to talk to someone. If you've got a couple hundred sentences that you memorize like this with all the basics, you'll be able to speak for 5 or 10 minutes easily. Yeah, so this is it. You first read them aloud over and over again, then you also listen to them. Do listening and repeating practice with learning materials, so an extra listening practice with other materials, so that you know the good pronunciation, just in case this is not good enough, because you don't know if you can trust this or not. You never know. But yeah, you read them over and over, and then once you know them, then you start doing retrieval practice. You look at this, you try to remember, see if you got it correctly or not, and that's it. And then you can also write them as well. We'll do writing exercises. I'll do that tomorrow. You translate them in writing into the language. So take pen and paper, which I don't have them right now with me, but basically I would translate this into Swedish, then check, take the red pen, compare with this, and correct. I will do that as well. But this is what you do to learn a lot of sentences and to improve your speaking very quickly in any language. All right. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.